My eyes shot open, and the first thing I noticed was the silence. Not just early morning quiet, but a deep, heavy stillness that felt like it was smothering the world. I looked over at my digital clock. The red numbers were sharp, unblinking. 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 32 seconds. I swung my legs out of bed. The floorboards didn't creak. It was like the sound was too scared to come out. I walked into the kitchen, my feet completely silent on the cold tile. The coffee maker was frozen mid-drip. A single perfect drop of coffee was just hanging in. The air, a tiny jewel caught between the filter and the pot. I looked out the window. Across the street, Mrs. Gable's son had just kicked his soccer ball. The ball was just floating there, a foot from his shoe, a frozen swirl of black and white. Their golden retriever, Gus, was caught in the middle of a bark, his mouth wide open in a silent shout at a squirrel, who was now a permanent furry statue on the telephone wire. Everything, every single thing, was frozen. Voiceover for the first 10 minutes or so, it felt like magic. Like I was the only one alive in a perfect silent snow globe. And then the silence started to get really, really loud. The anomaly that first hour was, I just walked out my front door, left it wide open, and stepped into a world that had become a museum. A mailman was frozen on the sidewalk, his hand stretched out, an envelope hovering an inch from the mail slot. A woman on a bicycle was a statue of motion, one pedal up, one down, but her hair fanned out behind her like a solid wing. I walked downtown, through the heart of the city, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Cars were locked, in a silent, permanent traffic jam. I looked inside one and saw a man throwing his head back, laughing, but all the joy was trapped and silent. In the car next to him, a woman was crying. A single perfect tear stopped halfway down her cheek. It was so beautiful and so horrifying at the same time. At first, I felt this strange freedom. No rules, no one watching. I walked into a bakery and just stared at the steam that had turned to glass over a tray of fresh bread. I went to the city library and stood among all the silent people, each one lost in a book they would never get to finish. I even picked one up, but the pages felt weird, like they were holding their breath too. But the wonder started to sour. The silence wasn't a novelty anymore. It was an oppressive weight. It wasn't just that there was no sound, it was no life. No change, nothing mattered. The city, which is usually a symphony of a million little movements, was now just one single, unchanging note of absolute nothing. I climbed to the roof of the tallest building I could find and just looked out at the sprawling, silent city of statues. The sun wasn't moving. The clouds were just painted on the sky. Time was broken, and I was the only one left. That thrill of being the only person who could move was gone. It was replaced by this deep, gut-wrenching dread. What's the point of being able to go anywhere, do anything, if there's no one to see it? If every smile is frozen, every conversation cut short? The loneliness was a physical thing, a cold spot in my chest that just got bigger and bigger with every silent street I crossed. I shouted just to hear something. And wrong, it didn't echo, it just vanished. That's when I understood. This wasn't magic, it was a prison. I was its only inmate. The silence wasn't just loud anymore, it was screaming. The ghost eye lost track of the days. The clock in my apartment was always the same. It's 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 32 seconds. I'd wake up, eat something cold out of a can, and walk the silent city, just looking for something, anything. A crack in the illusion, a sign that I wasn't completely alone. My walks got more desperate. I started talking to the statues. I'd have one-sided chats with the frozen barista at my favorite coffee shop, telling her about my day. I'd ask the unmoving cop on the corner for directions. I already knew my own mind was getting to be a pretty dangerous place. The silence was starting to fill up with replies I knew I was imagining. And then I saw it. I was in the Central Plaza, staring at a fountain where the water hung in the air like a glass sculpture, when I saw a flicker of movement. Way in the distance. A glint of light from a window on the old university campus up on the hill. It was so fast, I thought I had to have imagined it. Just a trick of the light, a sign I was finally losing it. But it was something, and that spark was enough. Hope, fierce and honestly terrifying, just exploded in my chest. The campus was miles away, but this walk felt different. I wasn't just wandering aimlessly anymore. I had a destination. I kept my eyes locked on that one building, the old domed observatory. It was an ancient place, hadn't really been used in decades. As I got closer, I started to get that feeling, that I was being watched. It was this primal, gut feeling that I wasn't alone on this static plane of existence. The silence here felt different too. It felt expectant. I pushed open the heavy oak doors of the observatory, and they actually groaned. It was the first real sound I'd heard that wasn't my own voice in I don't even know how long. Inside, it smelled like ozone and old books. Dust hung perfectly still in the single beam of sunlight coming from the dome. The floor was a mess of cables, overturned books, and strange humming machines that looked like they were barely holding themselves together. And in the middle of it all, under this giant, silent telescope, was a man. He was older, with wild gray hair and this frantic energy that made the air around him feel like it was vibrating. He was pacing and muttering to himself, his hands flying across a control panel that sparked and hissed. He was alive. He was moving. I just stared, my voice gone. He hadn't seen me. He was completely lost in this monstrous machine that took up the whole room. It was made of copper coils, gyroscopes that weren't spinning, and a crystal in the center that pulsed with this faint, sick green light. It was obviously broken. And then I took a step. A piece of paper crunched under my foot. And the sound was like a gunshot. The man froze. His head snapped up, his eyes wide and bloodshot, locked onto mine. They were the first living eyes I'd seen in forever. They were a terrifying mix of shock, fear, and something else. "Recognition, you," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You're in the wake." I didn't think there would be anyone else. I'm so sorry. The solution, the man's name was Dr. Eris Thorne. The words just tumbled out of him, like he'd been saving them up his whole life. He told me the machine wasn't a telescope. It was a chronometer, a time machine, or a failed one. I wasn't trying to travel, he said, gesturing at the broken machine. I was trying to observe, to untether a sensor from time, to watch the past and future like a film. But the energy, it's not a gentle river you can just dip your hand into, it's a waterfall. I overloaded the core. He pointed to shaking. Finger at the cracked crystal. It didn't just stop time. It fractured it. We're living in the temporal wake, the foam left behind when the wave of time crashed. He said we were the only ones moving because of sheer, dumb, cosmic luck. We were both at the exact epicenter of the fracture when it happened. I was just waking up, my brain somewhere between sleep and consciousness. He was in a state of intense concentration on his machine. We were both, in our own ways, out of sync with reality, and it saved us. But it wasn't going to last. "The core is unstable," Thorne warned, and the green light of the crystal seemed to pulse weaker. "The fracture is collapsing, soon. It won't just be a silent world. It will be no world at all. It's just nothing." The solution was terrifyingly simple. We had to fix it. We had to manually restart the core to discharge the energy and hopefully snap time back into place. But it was a two-person job. One person had to hold a series of heavy, supercooled relay conduits, while the other rerouted the power. Thorne had the brains, but not the strength. He'd been trapped here, waiting for the end of the world, until I showed up. What followed was a frantic, desperate race. Thorne was shouting instructions, his voice strained while I wrestled with these heavy, frost-covered cables. They were so cold they burned my hands right through the thick leather gloves he gave me. They had to be aligned perfectly. 1 millimeter off, and we'd be dust. "Now, Leo, hold it steady," gritted my teeth, my muscles screaming, as the first held the last, massive conduit in place. The machine's hum rose to an unbearable shriek that vibrated in my bones. The green light from the core flared, bathing the whole room in this emerald fire. Thorne's fingers were a blur on the console. "It's working," he cried, his voice breaking with triumph. "The cascade is beginning. It's going to the world just exploded into white." It wasn't a sound. It was a feeling of being ripped apart and slammed back together. A violent instant lurch. And then sound. So much sound. Traffic roaring from the city, birds chirping, a distant siren. The gentle hum of a computer fan. I stumbled back, my ears ringing. The chaos of a living world was almost too much. I looked at my hands, they were raw and red. Across the room, Dr. Thorne was blinking, looking around like he was waking up from a nap. He saw me, and his brow furrowed in confusion. "Excuse me, son," he said, his voice completely calm. "This is a restricted area. How did you get in here?" I just stared at him. The man I had just saved reality with was no recognition. In his eyes, nothing. For him, the silence, our struggle, it never happened. He was standing here at 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 32 seconds. And now it was 9 hours, 17 minutes, and 33 seconds. No time had passed at all. I couldn't speak. I just nodded, turned, and walked out of the observatory. I stepped back into the sunlight, a sun that was now slowly, beautifully moving across the sky. People hurried past me, lost in their own lives. Everything was back. Everything was normal, and I had never felt so completely and utterly alone. The world was saved, but only one person would ever carry the memory of that silent, frozen time. A secret keeper in a world that would never even know it was in danger. If you had a story that big, a secret that monumental, could you keep it? To yourself. Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoy tales that mess with the fabric of reality, make sure to like and subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Thanks for watching.